Oh, it's nice out here today. Having some cold weather lately, so this is it's a great change to see this. But I was talking to a friend of mine. Seems like I'm always doing that lately. Here talking to people. And this friend has a nice corporate job. They're what you would call a boss. They do hire people and fire people. So yeah, they're bosses at this place. And one of the things I wanted to talk about today was passing the buck. When bosses pass the buck. Now, in this situation, in this department structure, you have, the top bosses, and then you have like mid-level managers and so forth on down. So you get the supervisors and so forth. And so there's a hierarchy. And mostly in most jobs, you have a hierarchy, right? You have someone who has to press the paperwork. You have someone who has to actually, put hands on to the product or whatever they're trying to do, whatever service they're providing. So you have those people. But in this situation, this particular boss, who's a friend of mine, won't say the place that they're working at, but, because they want to keep a job. They want to stay gainfully employed. So I won't discuss the nature of their business, but I will just use the example and show you how passing the buck is truly bad. It's bad behavior, right? Because it affects another person. I talk about that a lot, right? In this situation, at this business, they had some issues with the accounting, right? And paperwork wasn't being processed properly, and there were some figures that were off a lot. And so they went over this paperwork several times, and they kept going over, and they kept sending it back to the processing department, who in turn could not find the errors and would send it back and say it's okay. Now, if you folks know anything about corporate America, you understand budgets, you understand that, the bottom line, and you know that things have to balance, right? People don't run successful businesses when they're in the red, right? So you want to stay in the black, and that's a term to show that you're balanced, okay? You want to stay there. And so anyway, they had issues as far as that goes. They had some issues with the payroll being messed up. A few employees, their checks went to other departments and so forth. All under the roofing of this particular department who handles all of these affairs. So you had a situation where, clearly there was a problem identified, and the people who are responsible for taking care of that problem, they don't have the tools or didn't have the means to correct that. Because, the bottom line is this: if you have an employee who's not going to get a paycheck that week, that's a problem. Especially if they're doing services and, providing work for you. So, and when you look at it from that standpoint, there should be a sense of urgency. Now, why do we get into passing the buck? We get into passing the buck because the department who brought up the concerns, my friend, right, that boss, they addressed this issue to the department who should be taking care of the problem. And they literally went back and forth in a series of emails showing them where the discrepancies were and asking them to fix these things, because we had employees that that weren't getting their checks, right? And that's a really bad problem in a company. So instead of that person going back and painstakingly combing through the records and making sure that this was in the right place or that was in the right place, they decided to become defensive. Now, when you look further into job structures and how people get their jobs, I've talked about this before. Many people don't have the scruples to do the job that they get hired for. Many people don't have the know-how, and it's merely a matter of who they know, and that's how they got with the company, right? Sometimes they did some dirty deeds to get to where they were going, and and the thing about that is that it reflects on the people who are running the company, because I believe personally that many sociopaths and many narcissists of that type are the bosses. They've figured out a way to get to the top so they can play the game and they can put the game on you. They're going to appoint people who who are flying monkey types, people who are going to be yes men or yes women, and who are not going to question, you know, the erroneous things that they do on a day-to-day basis. You know. So, after going back and forth, you know, they were a little offended at the fact that the person took their own, you know, on their own merits or whatever, tried to straighten out the records. And they felt like it was stepping on their toes. However, they weren't doing their job. So it was a big powwow, you can understand. Egos clashed and, you know, you had a big powwow. So the thing about that is when you have people who are passing the buck, you know, that means that they don't know their job. They have the authority to make all of the decisions. However, they're delegating you, the employees, to make the decisions for them. And they're getting that plush salary, and you're slaving every, you know, 2 weeks or whatever you get paid, or however y'all get paid. You're doing that. Now, when it's time for a bonus or some type of incentive, they forget. They develop amnesia, and they don't remember any of the things that you did to pull them out of the fire or make them look good. Right? Now, if there's something wrong in that company, there's some discrepancies, they'll pass that down to you. They'll pass that buck on down to you. But only under those circumstances. If it's something good or something to take glory for, or they'll take all the credit. You know, low-life people. It's a shame that on jobs we have to have bosses who are incompetent and low-lifes, right? Scumbags who get to make these decisions and be the authority over people like you guys who work every day and trying to make an honest living. So I really, you know, don't want to stay on their story too much, because I'm just giving you a reference point here so you can understand why it irritates me a lot. You know, you've had many people in your lives, I'm sure, pass the buck on you, and it was never fun for you. Maybe in that chore that mom or dad, you know, asked of you, and your little brothers or your older brothers or someone didn't take care of it, and then so now you get stuck with the job. And you always hated that. So when you people grow up and become adults and you still don't realize how you were affected as a child, and you want to pass the buck down to someone else, then you're a scumbag, right? You're the assholes I'm speaking about, right? And you don't deserve the positions if you have been afforded some type of power or responsibility at your company. You don't deserve that. So I'm calling you out, and I'm doing it promptly, right? One day, maybe the board will see the light and they'll start rolling people or something. Maybe that'll happen. Until then, I'll do these videos and I'll point out to you, right, where you're erring in how you're thinking when it affects another person. I love bad behavior people. And I also love people who take initiative and who should rightfully be the head bosses at that company. You know, and not saying that because they're friends of mine, but, you know, really these are good people, right? Some of the people I know. Like the videos and share the videos and subscribe. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day. You know, for you guys who are on your lunch break or something, you're going to go back into a job or something. I hope that you don't have to deal with these circumstances. If you're some mid-level person and you have to make decisions, I hope you're not getting the buck passed on you, right? Till we talk again, people. Y'all have a good one.